Imagine this. You travel across the stormy Atlantic Ocean in the 16th century, braving disease, hunger, and the terrifying prospect of being stuck with your annoying cousin in a cramped wooden boat. All this just to build a new life in the wilds of North America. And then, poof, you vanish without a trace. Welcome to the mysterious tale of the lost colony of Roanoke, where the only thing left behind was a cryptic word carved into a tree, and centuries of head-scratching. Let's unravel the oldest unsolved mystery in American colonial history, complete with stormy seas, suspicious stones, friendly and not so friendly neighbors, and theories so wild they'd make Sherlock Holmes raise an eyebrow. A new world adventure begins. In the summer of 1587, over 100 English settlers, including men, women, and children, set out to establish the first permanent English colony in North America. Their destination? Roanoke Island, located off the coast of present-day North Carolina. Their mission? Build a thriving settlement, make Queen Elizabeth proud, and avoid getting eaten by bears. Well, that part was not in the official plan, but it was probably on their minds. The man in charge of this ambitious adventure was John White, an artist, explorer, and part-time optimist. As the newly appointed governor of the colony, White brought along his pregnant daughter, Eleanor Dare, and her husband, Ananias. Eleanor soon gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. It was a hopeful beginning to what would soon turn into one of the biggest historical puzzles of all time, the Vanishing Act. Things didn't go as smoothly as planned. The settlers faced a harsh environment, unfamiliar terrain, and limited supplies. Friendly relations with the local Native American tribes were patchy at best, and growing food turned out to be harder than making a sort of starter during a pandemic. Faced with mounting problems, John White made the difficult decision to return to England for supplies. He promised his fellow settlers he'd be back quickly with food, tools, and hopefully a few more competent colonists. He did not return quickly. England was a little busy at the time, what with the small matter of the Spanish Armada attempting to invade. White was stuck in Europe for 3 long years before he finally managed to secure passage back to Roanoke in 1590. When he arrived, he wasn't greeted with the sight of colonists waving from wooden porches or the smell of roasting venison. Instead, the entire settlement had vanished. Buildings were dismantled, the area deserted, and not a soul in sight, including his daughter, son-in-law, and baby granddaughter. Cue ominous music. A tree, a word, and 1,000 theories. The only clue left behind was the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post and the letters CRO etched into a nearby tree. No signs of violence, no bones, no scorched earth, just this cryptic word. Now, if this were a modern-day mystery, we have FBI agents, crime scene tape, and 3 true crime podcasts investigating within a week. But this was the 16th century. John White interpreted the word as a possible sign that the colonists had relocated to Croatoan Island, now known as Hatteras Island, about 50 miles south. Unfortunately, a massive storm rolled in just as White prepared to search the island. Because life enjoys throwing curveballs, the storm was so fierce that his crew refused to continue, and they were forced to sail back to England without answers. Imagine traveling across the ocean, finding your family missing, getting hit by a hurricane, and heading back with nothing but a carved word. John White probably needed the 16th century version of therapy. What might have happened? Since the mysterious disappearance of the Roanoke colonists, a wide range of theories, some rooted in archaeology, others in pure speculation, have emerged to try and explain what went wrong. The most widely accepted explanation is that the settlers moved to nearby Croatoan Island, modern-day Hatteras Island. Faced with dwindling supplies, strained relations with certain native tribes, and no sign of relief from across the Atlantic, it's believed they sought help from the Croatoan people, who were known to be more welcoming. This theory gained serious support in the late 20th century when archaeologists discovered English artifacts, such as tools and personal items, in old Croatoan village sites. These finds strongly suggest that the colonists did not vanish into thin air, but instead assimilated into the local Native American community. Not the most dramatic twist, but certainly the most logical, and honestly, surviving by joining a thriving society beats starving in the wilderness any day. On the darker side of history, some theorists believe the colonists met a violent end. According to this line of thought, they may have been attacked by hostile tribes or even wiped out by Spanish forces from Florida, who weren't exactly thrilled to see the English creeping into their territory. But there's a hitch: no evidence of a massacre has ever been found. No remains, no scorched ruins, nothing. Of course, this was the late 1500s, when historical records were patchy at best and rumors were often spread by sailors who hadn't seen a bar of soap in weeks. Adding to the mystery is the curious case of the Dare stones, which surfaced between 1937 and 1940. These carved stones were allegedly written by Eleanor Dare, daughter of John White, and detailed the colonists' struggles, deaths, and her own survival deep in the American interior. Intriguing. Absolutely. Trustworthy. Not so fast. Most historians have dismissed the stones as clever forgeries, especially after more and more conveniently turned up during a period when local tourism could use a boost. Still, a few of the stones have resisted total debunking, and some researchers argue they may reflect genuine fragments of early colonial history or folklore. And then, because no great mystery is complete without it, there's the alien abduction theory. Yes, some people genuinely believe that extraterrestrials snatched the entire colony. The evidence? Well, there is not any. But that hasn't stopped the idea from landing in documentaries hosted by wildly enthusiastic men with gravity-defying hairstyles and faraway stares. Entertaining? Definitely. Credible? Let's just say it's best not to put your lunch money on this one. The Croatoan Archaeological Project. In 1998, a group of archaeologists launched the Croatoan Archaeological Project to get to the bottom of this centuries-old mystery. They've uncovered numerous English artifacts in and around Hatteras Island, including tools, weapons, and household items that date back to the 1580s. These findings provide compelling evidence that at least some of the Roanoke colonists survived and integrated with the Croatoan people. While the story remains incomplete, every shovel of dirt brings us a little closer to the truth, and farther from the idea that they simply vanished into thin air. Why it still captures our imagination. The story of Roanoke has everything: hope, mystery, adventure, tragedy, and that all-important unsolved ending. It's like the colonial version of a Netflix thriller where you are left yelling, "Wait, that's it?" at the screen. It's also a uniquely American tale. The Lost Colony was supposed to be the beginning of England's imperial legacy in the New World. Instead, it turned into a ghost story. Later colonies, like Jamestown, succeeded, but Roanoke became legend. The carving Croatoan has become a cultural touchstone. It appears in literature, TV shows, and even on haunted tours in North Carolina. A mystery that may never be solved. Despite centuries of digging, both literal and metaphorical, we still don't know exactly what happened to the lost colony. And maybe that's part of its charm. Did they live on with the Croatoans, quietly blending two cultures? Were they victims of conflict or disease? Or did they, as some still hope, leave more clues buried in the earth, waiting to be uncovered? We may never have a definitive answer, but the story of Roanoke reminds us that history is as much about questions as it is about answers, and that sometimes the most powerful part of a tale is the mystery it leaves behind. Still wondering what happened to the lost colony? So are we, but at least we didn't vanish. If this mystery gave you chills or giggles, smash that like button. Got a theory crazier than aliens? Drop it in the comments, we dare you. Subscribe for more history served with a twist of weird. And don't forget to ring that bell, because disappearing without a trace is so 1587.